All right, good evening, everybody. I think I've got things up going here, and welcome to another edition of Living in Faith in Today's World. I'm your host, Mark Russell, and tonight I've kind of named it Tithe. Are you joking? Um, this has been a topic that I've been kind of struggling with for myself over the last couple of months, and um, couple of events today kind of brought it to fruition for me that I wanted to actually say something on it today. And just again, I'm just sharing my experiences. I am not a teacher. I'm not appointed. I'm not uh, called upon by Yahweh or Yeshua to be anything more than I am. And all my purpose of doing this is just kind of sharing um, a bit of my journey, hoping that for some others out there that are going through a lot of this same world that I'm in, hopefully this helps to connect. And by all means, we have our Facebook group, Living in Faith in Today's World. You're free to come by and join that or my Facebook. You could always reach out to me. I think we need to connect an lot much more than we are doing, and we all need to make that effort of reaching out to each other in support in the goal to fulfill Yahweh's plan for us and to help each other along this path. So that is the only standing that I have with this. It's up to you to do your own due diligence, for you to do the research. That's one reason I don't just throw up a whole bunch of scriptures and say that this is what it is and how it is. Um, One of the things that I really believe in is there's so many self-appointed, self-anointed, self everything out there that I'm not going to add myself to those numbers whatsoever. I don't want the responsibility for one, um, and I don't want to be held accountable for that, um, and accountable for those that misinterpret you or to um, go down the wrong way. So that's kind of my stance on that. But one of the things that I definitely had um, a main question for it, and it's not a big struggle, but it's a main question. It's something that I think is very important, just like a couple of other really main fundamental, lack of a better term, worldview. And whether you start off with a worldview of just is there a God or isn't there? I think there's the same premises with inside of believers or non-believers. There's the whole worldview in the believers' camp. Well, you can, I broke that down right off into the beginning of, are you under nothing but grace? The law is done away with. The only thing that counts is the New Testament um, as a worldview within inside of those parameters. So this is where the whole tithing issue falls into that for me as well. Not only is it very prevalent in everything that you hear and see out there, um, but it is very prevalent within inside of what is the proper conduct, what is the proper behavior. And as a believer, um, one of the first things that I always wanted to do was know the truth and to act accordingly. Um, I think that's a fundamental foundation of anything. Um, so I have always kept on digging, and because you can literally punch in anywhere, and there's 10, 15 automatic different views about tithing, and and there's things, and you can go through them all. I'm sure that a number of you have got at least some experience in it because it does come up. From my side of it, I did initially go through those whole ramifications of the truth about tithing, the deception, tithing the deception. Uh, Tithing is no more than a pagan practice, and the Bible took it from the pagan practices. Now that's a total um, just out there whack job thing as far as I'm concerned. Um, but it's out there and people are following it. So one of the things that um, I'd always looked for was at least some kind of foundational what makes sense. What's as I've said in a lot of my other processes of just dealing with the secular world, what's the practical application here? What let's get some simple logic that makes sense. So I kind of come from that little bit of space of going, is what you're saying or what you're teaching, what you want me to accept, is it got a practical application? Does it make a meaningful sense to something that, hey, okay, I might not agree with it. I'm not asking to agree with it, but can it make sense? You know, I'll never understand all the ways of Yahweh or anything, or even come close to professing to understanding half of it at this point. Um, but can it make sense that at least I can then count on my faith or count on trust and just obey? Um, yeah. So if though I'm hearing something that just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever and is contradicting something and has no basis and so forth, then I'm going to at least keep on testing it and keep on trying and and so forth. So that's where I've kind of come from the tithing end of it, that I felt it's so important that it's such a fundamental part. And I mean, it even starts off right in Genesis at the start of talking about tithing. So where these other people came in that, well, it's the pagans that started tithing, I didn't get it. Um, but for myself, I kept on searching. And I think I kind of bought into at the very early stages when I was looking through so many different teachers and ministries to further my learning and so forth, and ran into all these doctrines about tithing and so forth. From their world point of view, I was kind of agreeing with them. Again, it's those those tickle your ears and kind of the doctrines are fitted to do what you want to predetermine as already truth. Instead of wiping that slate clean and testing it all and making sense of it, whether you want it to be true or whether you don't. So for me, it was an awful lot like Sunday services. It's like, yeah, but there's something still right down deep inside of here. There's something wrong. There's something that's not fitting. Um, it's here in so many places and so forth. And just to say, well, you know what? God made a big mistake. He, you know what? Everything before Jesus is just no. It's just irrelevant now. It's just forget it. It's all done away with. It doesn't apply anymore. I could never accept. I could never get my head around that at all. Um, so it's kept digging, and just like the Sunday service issue and not keeping a Sabbath, the tithe issue um, was another main topic that had always stuck with me, and it was something that every time I came across something more, I had a better understanding and a deeper push, and I would keep on. trying to learn. So as I came to MTOI, I over the last 6 weeks, 2 months, have been listening to a lot of the teachings and so forth, and of course, tithing has come up in me overhearing the different topics and in some of the other different services. And of course, with the Passover and the Week of Unleavened Bread feast just happening, that whole tithing issue and what was supposed to happen with it and so forth all came to fruition. That showed for me an awful lot of very practical applications and reasoning and purposes of tithing. And even to the point where on service yesterday, excuse me, um, I had the opportunity of asking Steve of what's my responsibility in my due diligence about the tithe, because I'm so used to the secular world and so much of the abuse that is out there and that you experience firsthand, let alone seeing so much of it, of what the mainstream Christianity is doing and what you want to call, whatever you want to call the people out there that use the word tithe, um, which I call basically a bunch of snake oil salesmen in suits, but um, it ends up being the same story. So I've kind of had that conditioning of going, okay, I know I'm supposed to tithe, but I really don't want to because I see what goes in here. And then if I'm tithing, where's my responsibility in here? How am I fulfilling my responsibilities? And, again, I think things are so made simple for us if we choose to stay in that realm of it. And for me, the answer was fairly simple, and I could totally accept on what Steve's answer was for me in going, I don't have any. My responsibility is to follow the instructions of Yahweh and follow the law, and that portion of that is to tithe. That's my responsibility. Now, do I also have the responsibility of discerning and recognizing on who I'm following and so forth? It comes underneath a different responsibility, but that responsibility is, let's say, has been fulfilled. So now I have the responsibility that if I've decided to be under somebody, under a teacher, and to be discipled by somebody, and to come under instructions, then that's my obligation to tithe to that organization. What they do with it is not my responsibility. What they um, happen to give accounting for or don't or anything else, my end of it is over then. Unless I'm seeing an abuse of that system, which again I think falls under my responsibility overall to myself. If I'm not safe in that ministry, if I'm not getting proper instructions, if I'm seeing wayward actions that aren't being attested or accounted for, then that falls under my initial responsibility of being awake and aware and doing my due diligence and being of sound mind and sober, um, not just accounting for a tithe or their actions of that. Excuse me. So I kind of really appreciated that answer for a couple of reasons. It satisfied that responsibility need, and then understanding what the tithe is for, and what the understanding of what um, their responsibilities about it is was a huge difference, and it made absolute concrete sense that for one fundamental thing, that I don't think gets said enough is you're not tithing to the congregation, to the priesthood, to the church, to whatever label you want to put on it. You're tithing to Yahweh. By tithing, I'm fulfilling my obligation that Yahweh has put on me, is what I'm doing. Where anybody else gets to put anything else in that conversation is mistaken. They are misleading. They are giving you disinformation. Tithing is nothing but here's the instruction from Yahweh. Here is the living word of our God. Are you going to obey it or are you not? All the rest becomes rhetoric. At the very foundation of it, it becomes rhetoric. There it is. Here's what you're supposed to do. Are you doing it? Are you fulfilling your obligation of me accepting my Father and accepting Yeshua as my Savior and to accept things? Am I fulfilling my obligations? It's that simple. And the more that you actually keep on testing things and keep on stripping it down to trying to be simple as well as be in depth in the understanding. There's so many layers to everything. But if you can get to that fundamental start first, I think it does become a lot easier to handle. And once I saw that, it was funny how today I come across one of the posts in my friend's news feed, and they've got a meme up, and it's about tithing. And I'm just laughing. I'm going to talk about just going through all of this and then through the lesson yesterday. And today, there's Yahweh just giving me the test. Did you get it or didn't you? What are you going to do? You know? So I actually ended up sharing the meme in our Facebook group, and I actually put this one on my page. And it's one of the common districts of memes that are out there, but basically one of the gurus wants your tithe. This guy says, oh yeah, I'll send him a sack of grain. Because it seems to be kind of the basic responses that I've come across over the last couple of months about asking others for other questions about it, or what I'm seeing in responses to people asking questions. And it's kind of, well, tithing is not in the New Testament, or Yeshua never practiced tithing. The other one is that it's a fraud taught by the churches, the 501Cs. Another one is, well, send them, like this meme said, a cow or a sack of grain. Most of the time I hear somebody saying, I'll send you a goat. And I just laugh at that. It's like so ludicrous. It has nothing to do with anything. Talk about a total deflection of any kind of logic or responsibility. You know, they're talking about their tithes of what they did and what they brought into the storehouses for the time that they lived in. It's only common sense. I mean, if you want to use that type of logic and things, well, then you better use it throughout everything. So that means if you want any blessings from God, or you want any blessings from who you call Jesus Christ, then you should have a goat delivered by UPS. If that's the way you want to talk about tithing. So why are you on all these groups and everything else with your piles of money and your cars and everything else going? You want your treasures laid up. You want your blessings. Why aren't you asking for your sacks of grain and your cow? you seem to be able to respond to that when it suits you. So why isn't that also then the blessings you're supposed to receive? Kind of funny, isn't it? So anyway, I did comment on the meme, and I was trying to be pretty diplomatic, I thought, and I just mentioned one needs to be careful when they decide which parts of Yahweh's word they want to obey or not. Just as you must also discern who they come under. So I thought that was a pretty open blanket, respectful end of things. Well, this ended up in an automatic blasting all the way through, which within two comments came into that I was being led to be deceived. It's not in the New Testament. We're no longer under the law. Um, and then the person that I replied to say, "Oh, all I'm saying is, well, okay, you're saying you made the statement here. Then you show me in scriptures where it says you are not to tithe anymore." Um, and of course, that ended in a blasting. And my point is, with that type of response to things was, well, wait a minute. You're making a statement. It's not up to me to disprove your statement. It's up to you to prove your statement. I could say the sun is blue. It's not up to me to prove you wrong. It's up to you to prove your statement. So you can't just reverse something and say that, well, that's truth because you can't disprove it. You can't prove what you're saying whatsoever. Therefore, you have no standing. I think that's some kind of just real simple, basic logic. But the next thing I got from that was, of course, they ran to my um, Facebook page, and this is one of course, the little meme caption I have up for my profile picture. That is my header. Um, and I got, well, don't come on my page blaspheming and using Yeshua and Yahweh. And this isn't even a picture of Jesus Christ. You're practicing idolatry, and um, discontinued the conversation and blocked me. So I was like a little confounded here, but obviously, just with that kind of behavior and so forth, it becomes kind of a non-conversation, and kind of really just ended at that type of thing anyway. All I was going to do was reply to her thing. I didn't mean any disrespect. Um, I was just pointing out, asking for a scripture for your belief. Um, so anyway, that's what ended up happening out of that, and I found it very interesting. And it kind of comes down to that world belief go that I was mentioning. So I don't only feel that I was tested on kind of the tithing lesson I was given, but I'm also kind of tested on that whole worldview um, option in the first place, and how to practice discussing, or what you come across, what's worth discussing and what isn't. And one of the things that I kind of took away from, again, trying to punch in the opposites of what I think about the tithing and everything else, to see what the other opinions are out there. And I still only come up with the same initial things. You're not under the law, or it's just a deception. We don't have tithing anymore because we don't ship goats and meat and grains. So therefore, tithing doesn't count. Okay, that's your beliefs. Now that comes down to what I've realized, and what I wanted to really share with this as kind of a second point was, now it's just a matter of trying to figure out where the worldviews are to start with. If you're even in the worldview um, of, look, at the law doesn't pertain anymore. This tithing doesn't pertain anymore. Nothing that God did before the arrival of Jesus Christ counts. There's not even a conversation between us. See ya. Yahweh has his plans and paths for you. I'm not going to interfere with that. That's and there's no debating or fighting about anything. There's that's your path. See you later. Blessings. I hope that Yahweh one day shows you what he needs to show you. Um, but it's to stay out of those and so forth. And one thing that I did pick up that Steve has mentioned a couple of times for some of the teachings, and it's kind of what I also kind of believed in some of my other practical teachings. If you're offended by something, then obviously there's a lack of maturity within you to be able to handle what happened. Excuse me. And I find that very poignant. So part of that maturity, I think, too, is learning to distinguish what are you actually trying to accomplish and what are you actually discussing. And if you're actually not even within inside of the same worldview of a topic, then it's going to be a debate. It's going to very often go into arguments unless there's some kind of real good mutual respect that you can have that type of conversation with somebody. But we need the maturity to kind of, I think, discern that right from the start, so that you you understand where the other person's coming from. You can have some understanding about how what you're going to say is going to affect them. And the more that I saw that this is the worldview they were coming from, um, I was backing away from having the discussion with them. But unfortunately, they reacted so quickly just to being say, well, provide me a scripture. It just didn't even have the opportunity to go down a notch or two, or just go, okay, I was just saying my opinion. Have a nice day. Um, so that's kind of what I wanted to share, and kind of what I've been going through this week with the tithing issue and so forth. I do firmly believe that we have a responsibility to tithe, and not only, of course, first and foremost, it's within side of the Torah, it's within side of our instructions, it's within side of my responsibilities of obeying. That's first and foremost, and all that really needs to be said whatsoever about it. Um, but for me, I also like to take it a little bit further, and I see the wisdom in it. The tithe is to the congregation, the church, whatever term you want to use. It is to your hierarchy within inside of that chain of you, the next person, Yahweh, Yeshua, Yahweh. You have that ladder of progression above, and that tithing is to go to the next layer above you. And if you've discerned enough that you have somebody that you have put yourself under, your obligation is to tithe to them. Their obligation is to treat that tithe, and they have more instructions about what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do, what their responsibility is, because again, you're not tithing to them, you're tithing to Yahweh. Yahweh appointed them to be above you. You decided to accept that appointment. So you are tithing to Yahweh, you're not tithing to them. And Yahweh will take care of them. So That's the first and foremost for me, and I saw the actual practicality in it, as in, yes, of course we need it. I want instruction. Do I have to run to somebody every day or whatever? I think I'm extremely blessed in a number of ways. I don't need that. Um, Others do. Others may need counsel, may need specific support, may want somebody there to be able to pick up the phone, and you want somebody there. You want your church doors open. You want to be able to pick up the phone or get an email and have it replied to. How do you expect all these things? I don't understand how people can keep on sitting back and demanding, I want all this, but you know what? It's up to everybody else just to provide it for me. I'm not supposed to do anything for it. It's just supposed to be provided. Well, that isn't going to happen. Somebody's paying for it. Well, Yahweh set up the perfect system, as always. And he set up the system to be able to take care of it, to take care of the body's needs. And if that's to have a full-time pastor or full-time minister or full-time teacher or somebody above you that has the time and the ability now because they are being supported by the tithes that that congregation brought in to be able to satisfy their needs so that they don't have to go out and back then plow a field or today have a 70-hour work week at a job just to pay for a house, a roof over their head, or food on the table because they're spending 70 hours. And for most that I hear of, it's a lot more than that a week, just providing back to the body in the services that their congregation needs. And if that's not the case, they answer to Yahweh about it, not to me. Now, I was sad to see, but I'm not surprised whatsoever that even within inside of this worldview, that very few are still either tithing. And I think that this comes from not a maturity yet within it, but it also comes from an awful lot of scarring of seeing just what the religious end of things have done, the mass doctrination about tithing and everything else is not a responsibility. It doesn't exist. And coupled along with the extreme abuse that's out there that we're all seeing, I think has really done a number on shutting it down. Which at the end of the day, in the very practical side of things, hurts the fellowship of the body acting in the right way and hinders the relationship between Yahweh and his people. And I see nothing but evidence of that all the time. So I would like to encourage people to keep looking, keep asking Yahweh for your answers, keep asking for direction. He will show you, He will guide you if you're open to asking for the lessons He will teach. He loves us. He's our Father. He wants everything for us. And we have to do our part. So that's kind of my 2 cents today. I'm going to, because I did want to show you, I'll put it up here just, well, I got it. Sorry if I'm looking over at my other screen here to be able to show it to you. I'll switch it over and do that one. This is a excellent teaching. I'm going to put it within inside of the description on the YouTube channel as well as the web page and the archives at mediabroadcastcenter.com. Um, this is Steve's, the M2OI's YouTube channel. Um, and it's just an excellent overall view of the tithing, the positions of it, um, the different tithes that there is, because there is more than the one. So, but it's really got a very solid fundamental um, foundation of understanding, I found. And at the very least, will give you a lot of food for thought and give you resources to actually go and do your own due diligence on things and have a better position for you to actually be able to decide for yourself. So I encourage you to take a look at that um, and take a listen and do your own thing. Till then, um, may Yahweh watch over you and bless you. Can you be a little better today, tomorrow than you are today? And till next time, God bless.